Good afternoon, you guys, and welcome to Real Talk with Tamra. As you guys come into the room, please do hit the like button. Also, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I hope that you guys are doing okay. I know that I am. I always express the importance of hitting the like button because the like button helps keep the video in the algorithm. So make sure you guys please like, share, subscribe, comment, and all of those wonderful things, okay? You guys, how have you all been? I know I ain't been up on here. Okay, I haven't been on here. I've been having to get some things straight as it relates to just first of all, I've had a lot going on, but I've been having to get some things straight um, as it relates to my computer. Um, just really heartbreaking. Some things that I found out. And so I've had to like regroup. And I've said, I'm not going to talk about it right now. I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Just let me marinate on it so that I can figure out the next thing um, that I want to do. Um, and of course, I've had my grandbaby. So um, she has really worn me out. So that has all of that has been going on, and then a lot of times when you're regrouping, it helps to just be off and clear your head and stuff. And I just want to say this, getting on here to me is almost like a sport. I have not gone as hard as I could go, because I do have a lot of other things going on. I work, I run a couple businesses, and of course I have myself, right, my family and all of that. And so I think being on here for the last, because I really started getting on here, um and when young Dolph case started, and we vlogged about that, and we know, like, we've started getting into talking about other things and things of that nature. um but we've had the opportunity to see just how devious people can be. I don't know, for me, I've never looked at anybody as competition on here. And not only have I never looked at anybody as competition on here, I definitely would never, I just don't see anybody as being competition. I think that everybody has a unique um, way that they do things. No two people are the same or whatever. And so we've had the opportunity to see, and I think it's a lot of mental illness that is up on here. And one of the things that I never wanted to have to do, right? And I've had to do that. And I know that there are people on here from all different walks of life. You don't really know what a person's history is, or what type of mental illnesses they have, how devious they are, or whatever. You don't know. And so for me, I'm just kind of like happy go lucky, even though I get on here fussing and shit. I just don't look at nobody else as being I'm not that. I kind of do my own thing and stay in my own lane. And I think the energies that's on here, and the more that you find out, it's just really sad. I think the energies on here, when people say, well, you always talking about the police, it's unfortunate that I have to involve the police and this stuff. You know what I mean? Because, um, you know, I've worked in the criminal justice field for almost 30 years now. And I've seen a lot, but I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before, where people fight over crumbs. I guess I really get the opportunity to see the rat race. It's really unfortunate, but I've been in prayer, and we've been praying and stuff. And um but and one of the reasons that I have to involve the FBI and the police department is because if people are sick enough to do what these people have been doing on here, they are subject to do anything. Okay. And that's all I'm gonna say about that for right now. But I also want to talk about Tony Kurthers. Okay. Now you all know that we had talked about Tony Kurthers before, and I told you all how I wasn't sure um about um I wasn't sure about if I wanted to see him get the death penalty, although my heart is always with the families of the victims. That's just what it is, of course. I don't ever want to see anybody innocent be um, taken out. And we've had that to happen in the past, okay? Um, it's not often, but it has happened where innocent people have been persecuted and prosecuted and then electrocuted, okay? The case of Tony Carruthers is very unique, and the reason I am indifferent about that is not because I don't feel like he is guilty, because I've had the opportunity to read everything. I won't discuss it on here, of course. I'm hoping maybe a major network. I don't know if all of that stuff will be accessible or available to them. Maybe it will be once all of this is over. One day, we'll speak about it. You know, there were numerous witnesses um, who spoke out, who gave statements, and out of fear, they took they recanted their statements. Not just the one person that they're sharing. There were numerous ones, and all of them, to include the one that they're sharing, took their statements back because of threats to their family. That's what is documented. Fear. All of them said the same thing. The police made them lie. Okay, you know, you have at least one, two, three, four, five, six people that said the same things. Okay, and that is that Tony Carruthers was involved and set this up, and they all recanted their statements, including the Alfredo guy. Um, and they all said that the police made them say this, right? And off of the record, they said that they were threatened. Okay. Um, and so, I never had any doubts. I never had any doubts that Carruthers was involved. I guess I've just been very indifferent because the one of the other ones, James Montgomery, is out. James Montgomery was able to get out because of a technicality. And I think what we saw in court, there's documentation from years ago of Tony being mentally ill. He's always been on meds, from my understanding. And so he kind of acted out in court, right? And that brings a lot of attention. He kind of sensationalized everything. His attorneys, we talk about how he has 7 attorneys, but in the documentation, those attorneys were being threatened. Okay, letters were being sent to their homes. Okay, you're talking about the age where everybody's name and phone number was in white pages, right? And addresses. Um, and so they were removed. And after the 7th attorney, the judge said that he was not going to appoint another attorney, and he was made to represent himself. So, as I said, I mean, people gave detail um, of what happened. James Montgomery did not know. Um, James Montgomery did not know the victim. Okay, and there were 3 victims. He did not know Marcelo. Okay, he didn't know Marcelo, but Marcelo was Tony's friend. And I think the thing that's bothersome to me now is that Tony speaks about the victims as if he did not have a relationship with Marcelo, right? I think Marcelo never believed because, according to police records, James and James Montgomery and Tony was, um, allegedly they robbed drug boys. They robbed dope dealers. Okay, I don't think that Marcelo would, um, have ever thought that, Tony would have set him up, right? Although there's no honor amongst thieves, right? But Marcelo was 21. Tony was about 25. So Marcelo, even though he might have been street savvy, he was still had a naivety about him. Um, I guess because he and Tony were tight. When Tony was in jail, he looked out for Tony. Um, when Tony got out, he laced him up with money. When Tony got out, he went and picked Tony up. When Tony was on the work release program while he was in jail, Marcelo was picking him up, taking him and dropping him off back at the jail. That's how Montgomery was able to see him in his flashy cars and jewelry and ask about him. And, and then all of this happened. Now, they talk about DNA. I don't believe that Tony went down to the grave. I don't. I believe that Montgomery and his goons finished the victims off. That's what I believe. That's why he says the DNA. I believe DNA will prove that there were other people at the time the DNA was tested. It was not as sophisticated as it was. The sophistication of how they test DNA now was not as good as it is now, right? And I think that if they tested it, it will, you know, especially if these people were in and out of jail, it will, if these people are alive, it will show that there were others. Okay. I unfortunately, I really believe it's unfortunate that the state, because they know that Tony Carruthers was involved, I think they don't want to have to be forced to go after, whoever it was that helped to finish these people off. It's sad, but that's true. I don't think it would necessarily exonerate Tony Carruthers. Um, Although they may try to use that to exonerate him, because I really don't believe he went down to the grave. But I do believe that Montgomery and some of his goons did. Okay. So that's why you hear Tony say, "Well, I wasn't there." I don't think he was there at the grave. But according to James Montgomery, um, cousin, okay, um, when the victims got there, okay, they was with Jonathan, who people tend to leave out. Jonathan told the police what happened. Jonathan has a statement. Unfortunately, Jonathan, before he could, um, get on the stand, he was found hanging from his cell. According to jail staff and the police, it they didn't have any proof, um, that some gang members were sent down there, which makes me question the jail staff, because how were they never believed that Jonathan hung himself, right? Jonathan took them to the grave of the victims. This was James Montgomery's brother. Jonathan took them to the grave. Jonathan spoke to others, because it seems to me he went from bragging to it eating up his conscience to telling the police what happened. And according to Jonathan, Tony was involved as well as his brother, right? Um, I'm hearing that you know it psychologically, was starting to mess with Jonathan, and he had told, and he was going to testify. And unfortunately, he was found hanging from his cell. Okay. If that's not cold blooded, I don't know what is, but you have to question jail staff. I don't think that the jail wanted to look into it, although the jailers that worked there said they knew that Jonathan didn't do this. It was a couple guys that did this to him. So what? the jail didn't want a lawsuit, so they're okay with just saying that it was a sewer to the side when and the police knew that it wasn't, but they just could not prove it. What were the cameras? This was before they started putting so many cameras and stuff inside of the pods, right? um, it's very unfortunate. But Jonathan was there. He was there when they initially did the play. He said they had been riding around with Marcelo and Frederick. Okay. This is what he told the police. Hey, just getting them comfortable. Okay. Um, Marcelo met, started becoming very acquainted with James Montgomery through Tony. Okay. Tony set up the play according to everybody that recanted their statement because he was the only person that knew Marcelo's business. Marcelo trusted him, and through trusting Tony Kurthers, he, according to documentation, he trusted the others. They were able to get close to him, right? So was it divine intervention? Maybe it could be. I think that the thing that bothers me about Tony is, like I said, is that he, when they ask him, you know, how does he feel bad about what happened? He said, I don't feel bad about nothing. I wasn't there. How about this was my friend? This was a dude I kicked it with. If he didn't, I hate that this happened to him. But according to some people, that has never happened, right? Um, so when James got out, when James got, there was an appeal, he was going to get another trial. He decided to just plead guilty to second-degree murder. And he says that Tony Carruthers was not with them when they went down to the grave. So that's why I don't believe that he was with them. I think he told the truth about that part. I think that he was with them up until that point, right? And the other goons, whose DNA, because they said there was like what, 4 or 5 other people's fingerprints that at that time was not in the system. Okay. That's been 30 something years ago. They may be alive, they may not be. um, Carruthers said that a guy named Fisheye, okay, and I think they said his real name too, okay, um, was the person who helped to, who actually shot them and buried them. Um, so he admitted to, I guess, his part to get second degree. Um, and then he ended up getting out after 20 something years. And according to police, he's way more dangerous than Carruthers. Okay. So I guess my indifference is that you got one that is out that shouldn't be. Um, and then but you want to kill Tony. I don't think that Tony, I feel like it should be commuted to life in prison. Um, because I think he and Carruthers were equally involved. Okay. They're the ones that brainstormed this. Um, even according to Carruthers' brother Jonathan in documentation. So, um, yeah, was it divine intervention? I think I think Tony, um, should confess his sins. Tony didn't want to take any deals because he says I did not kill them. Okay, I was not there. If you talk to some of the jailers who was in jail with them, that's a whole nother story within itself. They said they bragged about, both of them allegedly bragged about these killings to intimidate jailers. They definitely, especially not Carruthers, but Montgomery, they definitely had other inmates um, afraid. Um, You just got jealous on record saying that they bragged about these killings. So I don't know. I think the evidence is there. All of the people that came forward, to include relatives, to include Jonathan, who was there from the start, and Carruthers' cousin, who was there from the start. She said that the victims, the two guys, was with Solo, and Fred was with him and James. Tony was not there. And once they got down in Carruthers' cousin's basement, because they had been riding around kicking it all day, they flipped, they turned on them. Okay, that's that they started. They robbed them. They let them know this is a stick up. Okay, which was, hey, shocking to um Marcelo. Okay, and now even the man who went to Marcelo, that knew Marcelo and Carruthers, that was cellies with him and James, went to Marcelo and said that, dog, I heard your boy and a dude named James saying they gonna get you, they gonna rob you. Marcelo brushed it off because Tony was his boy. He took care of Tony. You know what I mean? He laced Tony up. That was one of his riders. That was one of his hitters, because he had the money. Okay, so he couldn't believe that. So he brushed it off and let his guard down, and hey, it proved to be detrimental. But even that guy took his statement back and said the police had made him say it. Okay. One person that never got a chance to take his statement back was Jonathan. Okay. Because he was found hanging, and they couldn't prove anything other than it was a suicide. Okay. So he didn't get a chance to recant his statement and say police did it. His statement still stands, which I don't think that it was used. Okay. Um, so was it divine intervention? Hey, I'm not God. We all supposed to be God's children. Some of these folks so evil. I'm just saying, in this world, I get to wondering, did is everybody a child of God? Some of these folks was born evil. Okay. Satan has his spirits too, people too, and I get to thinking about, when the Bible says that whenever a spirit is rebuked out of a person, it kind of lingers trying to find another vessel to get into. And so a lot of times when people are possessed, and they get delivered, it is important to stay delivered, because those spirits are out there, and they say when those spirits enter another vessel, it's 7 times worse. Okay, that's why I'm always very meticulous about who touched me and all of that, because I know the transference of stuff. I look at folks' eyes, and if you look at Carruthers and Montgomery's eyes, even around that time, I don't know what was going on, but it was something that was there, that was a a deity or entity that was evil. Okay, I watch people's eyes all the time. Okay, and when them eyes ain't right, I be trying to get the hell away. Okay, or be clutching for my purse so that I can go ahead and up before they do. Right. So I just think that, my opinion, my heart goes out to the victims. I think people should, but I guess everything, all of the files and stuff are just not accessible to everybody. Okay, so I guess that's why they would be. And then some people just don't believe in the death penalty. I believe in the death. If they was gonna, I feel this way. If it's all or nobody, especially if they play equally in this, all or nobody. Okay, um, life in prison, yes. My heart goes out to Frederick's dad. It hurts me to see him. That's a strong man, though. He lost another son 6 months after that, and I'd be interested in knowing what happened with that. I hope that a hit wasn't put on him. I don't know. But I'm happy that he speaks out, and he's waited 30 something years. So those are the types of people that my heart is with. As far as Tony, I believe Tony was involved, but if James is going to be out, I don't think it's, why commuted to life in prison. I think that that's what should happen. But I do feel like the crimes was heinous in nature. People need to remember that. And these people have been gone for 30 something years. I don't care what Marcelo, what kind of drugs he was selling. I just think to set your friend up, to violate his trust like that, to take his life. Good God Almighty. There is definitely a spirit over Memphis, a spirit of jealousy where people want what you got. And, even though they ain't got the mindset to get it, um, they feel like if they don't have it, even if I can't get it, I just want to see. I don't want to see you with it. So we see that spirit has lingered, the spirit of murder and jealousy, for a very, very long time amongst our people, and I'm sure it's everywhere. But um, it could have been divine intervention. I'm not God, but my heart goes out to the families of these people, and I think people need to remember that. Um, when we say Tony is a black man, he is, but those people that was buried alive in that grave, every one of them was black. So we need to remember that too. Okay, their lives mattered also. All right. Anyways, you guys, I want you guys to please like, share, and subscribe. If you would like to support the channel, you could definitely support the channel via Cash App.